Welcome to the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside Louisville, Kentucky, home of the just concluded Kentucky Derby, an exciting and historic one. And in Maryland, you're up next, the land of pleasant living for the Preakness in a week and a half or so. John Webster, how you doing up there from my home state?
Hey Gary, doing real good, man. Another great week in sports. A lot of stuff going on. You're right. The Preakness is a couple weeks away. We're going to do a rehash about that Kentucky Derby, and you can share with us what happened and what made the event golden. How about that for a lead in there? And
Yeah.
we're going to start off first with NBA. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. You got the Celtics out. You got the Orlando Magic out. You got the Denver Nuggets out. You have the Toronto Raptors out. And you have the Houston Rockets out. All that happened over the weekend. So go ahead, man. You start and tell me what you think with all that stuff going on.
Well, I guess the one of consequence is probably Detroit overcoming a 3-1 deficit to blow out the Magic in Game 7. Um, and of course, the fallout from that is that their coach, the Magic fired their coach Jamal Mosley before we went on. Well, earlier today, he was an unfortunate casualty, but John, when you have a 3-1 lead on the number one seed in a first round playoff series, you haven't been out of the first round in 3 consecutive years. And then you just blow it. I mean, that game six, I think, what was it? They missed 24 consecutive shots, which I've never heard of in any capacity. I don't even think the Washington Generals missed that many shots against the Globetrotters. So it's, and I think that's the thing about this first round that you had teams that had favorites on the ropes, and then just I'm just going to say that they missed out. There's another term that I can't use that I won't use rather about what they did, and the Magic Celtics were probably the two biggest examples. Again, the Magic, I like to use this term. They couldn't buy a basket with perfect credit, and that's what cost them in Game 6. They hung in there for a half in Game 7, but Detroit just, again, just started pulling away as they would. The Magic just couldn't get over that hump. Every time, they were either up by a point or within a point or something, they lose a lead, and eventually Detroit was going to do what it does at home. Good for them, but now they've got to face the Cleveland Cavaliers, which won a Game 7 over the Toronto Raptors. There's no surprise there. And I guess, John, when we look back at some of the predictions that we made just a week ago, I had predicted that Boston would close out their series. They didn't. They relied. Well, he said they lived and died with the three pointer, and the three pointer, got him kicked out. We got trash talking now about it, but with Philadelphia, they had a team on the ropes. Philadelphia now has a new lifeline. Of course, now they've got to face the Knicks. That's going to be a tough series, and of course, the Knicks just absolutely boat raced the Atlanta Hawks to knock them out. John, I guess before we handicap any of these series, I'd like to hear your take about this Eastern Conference because in one sense, we got second round matchups that we expected. I mean, granted, we don't have the number two Celtics in there, but you got what is it, four of the top five seeds remaining, and I think right now just given what Philadelphia and Detroit did to overcome big deficits. I wouldn't look past the 76ers. Yes, the 76ers by any stretch, because thanks to Tyrese Maxey and the return of this guy named Joel Embiid, they're in the second round, and that's something that nobody expected. And I don't care if you're a diehard 76ers fan, you didn't see that one coming.
Well, real good playoffs so far. It's been interesting. It's been a lot of drama. I'll start with the Celtics. Everybody knows I love my Celtics. Rough way to lose, but the better team won. What I'll say about the Celtics is this: they went out the same way they played, shooting threes. Now,
Mhm.
with that being said, I don't see a reason to shoot 43 or 47 threes if you're not hitting them. And when you're down by one, I don't see a reason not to drive and kick out for a mid-range jumper. That's what I'll say. Also, the combinations that Missoula was using, some of those kids hadn't played together. Some of those lineup he put together hadn't played together the whole season. Rough way to lose. Um, Joel Embiid, he's rough, man, and that's a load to deal with. And Boston really didn't have anything to deal with him out top or down low. Boston would go small, and that would leave Jalen Brown on Embiid. And Jalen Brown played him hard, but that's still rough. So we'll
It's
see.
still yeah,
Now,
it's still a mismatch. Yeah.
yeah, and with that being said, they're going next round. The Sixers are going to play the Knicks. Knicks beat the Hawks. I don't think I've seen anything like that. I don't know since when, Gary. It was 140 to 89. You know,
John,
it was absolutely terrible.
I,
Um,
I have to ask you this to see if you saw it, but after three quarters, do you remember the score?
did they only have like 50 or 60 points? I can't. It was
It was
because I remember the
100.
first half that they only had 19. So what?
Yeah, I want to say it was something like 101 to 40, and I might be underestimating that one because I want to say they were up by like there was one point they were up by like 70 points, it seemed like. And you know, the Hawks fans were justified in booing him, but that was a game in which the Knicks won it more than the Hawks lost it. When you shoot like the Knicks did, when you're knocking down baskets and you play at that pace on the road yet, in a game that could have really been an elimination game for you. Well, actually, what elimination game, before that they kind of found a game. But I mean, in a game like that for the Hawks, elimination game, for them to just like let a team come in, raid their refrigerator, sleep in their bed, eat all their porridge and all that other stuff. It's inexcusable, but I got to give the Knicks credit because they really took it to them offensively. They did what they had to do.
Well, it was a good win for the Knicks. Next round, Knicks and Sixers. I think the Knicks beat the Sixers. Cleveland, Detroit. Uh, I think Harden and Donovan Mitchell are going to be a lot for Detroit to deal with. Detroit has Cade Cunningham, but who else is going to come to the party with Cade Cunningham? Will
Yeah.
that be Tobias Harris again? Will Jalen Duren find his way? I don't know. I also see the kid at Cleveland. What's his name? Allen. He played really
Oh,
good.
Jared Allen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he played really good, and I think he'll find his way with Harden and with Donovan Mitchell. So I go with that right now.
All right.
Um,
Well, can I
y-
make my predictions?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not even going to bother to pick the number of games. I'm just going to say, straight up, I agree with you. I think the Knicks take the Sixers because um, you don't know what you're going to get from Joel Embiid, and that's I mean Tyrese Maxey is I mean for all intents and purposes, it is his team. And at this point, Embiid is a complementary player, but you need more than that, especially against a Knicks team that I'm gonna say they're pretty complete. They're well coached. They play defense. They They have guys that can shoot the three, but they also have guys that will take it to the hole. You know, a guy say like a Mitchell Robinson. You know, they've got guys that can shoot mid-range jumpers. They don't solely rely on the three, even though Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns can do it. You don't want your big man out there shooting them, but he can. But at the same time, you know, he can dribble drive to the basket. He can put it home, and I think it just might be too much for the Sixers. As for Cleveland and Detroit, I agree with you. I think it is Cleveland because one thing I like about Cleveland with James Harden, it's like I think he has found a team where he can accept the role and he's willing or he's able to step up and be that leader if Mitchell is struggling, or you say a guy like Jared Allen, is like say the younger player that he is. What only thing that concerns me about Cleveland is that they just have these mental lapses that really cost them, and I want to say it was maybe in game five rather, against Toronto that they had a chance to take a lead and just missed out on it. I mean, it was just like it was the weirdest sequence, and maybe I'm thinking game four too, that they I don't know, they just had a brain lock. They're not always focused when they need to be, and that's something that they can't afford against Detroit. Having said that, I still think they have more of a complete roster, a complete rotation to beat Detroit because everything you said about Kate Cunningham, again, it is his team, but he needs help, and he needs help for a team that's a little bit more physical in this round than the Magic were.
Well, we go out west with OKC and the Lakers and Minnesota and the Spurs. What's going to happen with that?
As good as OKC is as the defending champion, as strong as they've looked all season, we're seeing a different Lakers team. We're seeing a team that still has something left in the tank. I mean, granted, out in California, you're probably paying $7 a gallon, to fill up that tank. But LeBron, every time I want to say he's old, it might be time to hang it up, that even though he can play at a high level, he turned it up a notch in his first round. And I can't I right now I just can't look past the Lakers if I'm OKC. They're going to get somebody who's physical enough to stay with LeBron for 48 minutes, and I think the that's going to be really the key for the Lakers. What is that? Jalen Williams. They've got to have a guy who can match up with SGA. I don't know if they have that guy right now. It might be a lot of double teams, but of course, that leaves Holmgren open. And, he's a guy that we say he looks spindly, but he's not afraid of contact. He draws contact. He gets up from contact. He can, for a really skinny guy, he can take it and he can dish it out. And that's the thing that makes him such a great complementary player for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
And what's going to happen with Minnesota and the Spurs?
That, again, I guess at first glance you would think it favors the Spurs, but Minnesota found something in that first round series about it's not so much about their physicality, it's about their depth and resilience, that next man up mentality. They might have amped back to, for that first game, for that opening game, but between Randall, well, I'll just say, starting with Randall, that he's a complimentary guy right now, but they they have found a depth, they have found a resilience. I'm gonna say they found a resolve that really beat a Denver team that I thought would be here instead. That would win that series. But Minnesota really took a lot of the suspense out of that series in a way that surprised me, maybe you, probably a lot of people, because we just figured they were depleted and they just didn't have the manpower to keep up with Denver. And they really beat Denver at its own game on both ends of the floor.
So who you got moving forward? Who you got?
Um, uh, just because San Antonio has home court, I'm going to go with San Antonio. Um, Wembanyama is he's ridiculous right now, and there's still, that ceiling is still high for him. Um, he does things. He does things defensively. The way that a guy like that, a guy that big, can just move laterally along the baseline, the guy who can flash inside and then kind of, go back outside, shoot a shot. You can't it's hard to coach against that when a guy can move that well. I'm trying to think of somebody else that I've seen. I've seen comparisons between him and Jabbar in terms of, having a shot that's unblockable. I don't know about that, but his agility reminds me of prime Jabbar, and I think that's something that they have to that Minnesota really has to figure out how, like, on every time, for every minute he's on the floor, you've got to count for him. And the other thing about him is that he's not afraid to come out and play a little defense, to just step out maybe near the foul line, defend. He's able to poke the ball away. And he's able to poke the ball away and then come back down and finish up the turnover.
Okay, what about OKC and the Lakers?
I'm going to pick OKC in six because I do think that top to bottom, they have a roster that's good enough to not just hold serve at home, but I think they can get one in LA, and that's all they need.
Well, I got San Antonio and OKC as well. So we'll see how these games work out. It's going to be very interesting and a lot of fun. And I will be right in front of my TV eating gummy bears and sipping on a bottle of water as we watch. Hey,
Yeah, you kind
hey
of
man,
talking my language with gummy bears.
hey man, Man, tell me why the Kentucky Derby was golden, man. What in the world went on with the Kentucky Derby? I'm hearing stories about a horse that went from last to first, 23 to 1 odds. Talk to us, Gary.
All right. Being down there on the track and watching it unfold, I'm still, and the weird part was that when they pass in front of us, because where they have media, I'm like inside the track. I mean, I'm literally on the dirt, on the outside rail with a lot of media, because of course, the horses are toward the inside against the rail. But watching it unfold on the screen, and then when they come down, it was hard to tell who was going to win that, because at the point where we passed, and it was just inside the 16th pole, and it looked like it was going to be a three wide photo finish before Golden Tempo just literally came out of nowhere from the back to win that race. And to really put it in context, and before I try to explain it to you, made history for Sherry DeVoe, who became the first woman trainer to train a Kentucky Derby winner. Of 18 women trainers, I think that are in the sport, or that have trained Kentucky Derby horses, she's the first. He was a 23 to 1 shot. Um, Started from the 19 post, or drew the original 19 post, but of course, with all the defections and scratches and stuff, including one as they were loading in the gate, who dumped his rider and had to be scratched, obviously for safety reasons. So you're talking about an 18 horse field, gets bumped at the start, gets shuffled back along with Renegade and the horse that finished third, Ocelli, who was a 70 to 1 shot. And I think the benefit sometimes in being in the back of the pack there is that you can pace yourself, you can watch how things sort out up front and find your opening. If you look at the replays, the overhead replays, where it just shows how first he's outside, then he's, kind of inside on the 3 lane, then kind of veers outside. But regardless, he had to cover a lot of ground going around the outside, especially coming into that final turn, and then, kind of coming back in and then trying to make up that distance down the stretch. It was an impressive run. And again, maybe because he was able to kind of pace himself, but Jose Ortiz was able to pace the horse and save his best for last, from last, as it turns out. That's why he won the race, because if you look at that closing speed, and I meant to look at the chart, and if I can find it here at some point, I'll tell you, it was something to behold, because he had one of the fastest closing stretches I think I've ever seen in my 14 years covering the Derby. Since I've been here, the only other horse that I can think of that I've seen that just really had great closing speed was American Pharoah in 2015. And I don't know whether Golden Tempo is going to go to the Preakness, because the 2 week turnaround, as opposed to, say, John, when we were younger and horses did that without batting an eyelash. They had a whole lot more races under their belt before they even got to the Derby gate. And I'm talking about, at least half a dozen races before they got to the Derby. It's different these days, where they might race two or three times their 2-year-old season, and then kind of pick and choose some of the stakes races on the Derby trail before they get to the Derby in hopes of peaking then. You're talking about a horse that really kind of, I guess the horse had like 5 career starts, including the Derby, had what, 3 wins and 2 third place finishes. So the horse, the potential was there. The thing to note about Golden Tempo is that he was a horse that um, tended to find his race watching everybody else, coming from behind. And it really played out in this. Jose Ortiz, a great jockey. He won the Kentucky Oaks on Friday, so he completed a Oaks Derby double aboard always Philly, always a runner. So we know what kind of jockey he is, much like his brother Irez or Ortiz Jr. or Red rather Ortiz Jr. So you're talking about 2 high quality jockeys. But if you have a quality mount, a horse that you know very well, you know his tendencies in a race like that. When you have that kind of distance, you have that ability to kind of map things out, as opposed to, say, 7 furlongs or something like that. A mile and a quarter just gives you just that much more distance, where you can really pace yourself and just say, okay, it's go time. So when they get to the top of the final turn, and he's, kind of outside, he's getting that angle that he needs to go inside, even though, again, he had to cover a lot more ground to get there. He saved enough speed to turn it on. And what we have is a horse that, again, as a 23 to 1 shot, that I happen to have a little money and come away with a little something thanks to him. This is where we are. We just wait and see whether he comes to the Preakness at Laurel Park as opposed to Pimlico. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't show up, because I think it was like 2 of the last 4 Derby winners have skipped that just because of the 2 week turnaround. And then they look toward the Belmont in June, where you have 5 weeks really between the Derby and the Belmont to rest and such. It really takes a lot out of those horses to run the Derby with a field that big. And again, it wouldn't surprise me if he skipped this one like several of the others have in recent years. But congratulations to Sherry DeVoe, just an excellent trainer. And sometimes it's just your day. I'm going to say she's due in one respect. She's she's opened up a door that nobody thought, could really open. And but she's earned it. She's earned it. She studied under some great trainers, and now she's shown what a great trainer she is. I mean, nobody can take that victory away from her or her horse.
Well said. Well said. And she is the first woman trainer to win the Kentucky Derby, right? Or am I
Correct.
wrong?
No,
Okay.
she is the first to win the Derby. Another woman won the Belmont, and the name doesn't. Hold on, I can probably call that up for you, um, but yeah, yeah, again, she won on the biggest stage, so that that is something that's going to really follow her for a long time for the rest of her life. But now I think it's going to open up a whole lot of other doors for women trainers. Gina Antonucci with Arcangelo 3 years ago at the Belmont. That was yeah. She was the first woman to win a triple crown, or excuse me, triple crown race. Try saying that fast.
All right, Gary, quickly, because we get coming to the end.
Hmm.
We just found out that Tarek Skubal has bone chips in his elbow. He needs surgery, probably out 2 or 3 months. Does he come back this season or is he done for the season?
I think when you're talking about 3 months, I mean, granted, it's the beginning of May. Ideally, if he sticks to that timetable, you're talking about maybe the 1st of August or something like that. A lot of it depends on where Detroit is. If they're in it, maybe you try to bring them back. Maybe save them for the stretch run or something. But if they're not in it, I don't know if you risk bringing him back. Uh, Even if, like, say, he stays on schedule, because when we talk about elbow injuries like that, John, what do we think about? Three words: Tommy John surgery.
Mm-hmm.
He's not
Mm-hmm.
having that, but when you have those kind of elbow injuries, that one is like rounding third, heading for home. When you're a pitcher who throws as hard as he does and has a couple of Cy Young awards under his belt.
All right, last one. Jordan Westberg. He had been on the 60-day disabled list with some elbow problems himself with the Orioles. Today, they shut him down, saying he will not be throwing. Does he end up getting Tommy John as well? It's with the UCL nerve in the elbow.
Yeah,
UCL, whatever it is, nerve,
yeah.
ligament, whatever.
Yeah, UCL. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I think you have to shut him down, and he's probably going to have that surgery as a precaution because it's just like when somebody tears an ACL. The default is that you shut them down, even if it comes in the first game of the season, because while a knee tends to come back stronger from that kind of surgery, Tommy John, I'm sorry, from a torn ACL, much the same way with Tommy John surgery, how they graft that ligament on there, it tends to make the elbow stronger, but it has to heal. It just needs time to heal. And if you have a UCL injury, and only reason why I say this is because as a massage therapist who has treated athletes with all sorts of injuries, you gauge from them how they feel, how sturdy the knee or the elbow is. In my experience, I probably have dealt with more athletes with knee injuries trying to come back from that, especially runners. And if you do that flexibility test, you can see how strong it is. But it's still best to err on the side of caution, let them rest. I'm not a doctor. I'm speaking strictly from my experience as a massage therapist who has performed sports massages. So you just kind of shut it down and let it play out. And then, we'll see you next spring.
With that being said, Gary, go ahead, take us home.
Well, let's see. We got more baseball. Well, the second round of the NBA playoffs, I think, is probably more intriguing than I expected, especially in the Eastern Conference, because I thought we were going to see some new faces. I thought we were going to see some upsets, but we see kind of something that really shows what happens with the top seeds. You got four of the top five seeds that are still left. I don't want to say that it's wide open, but I'm going to say that it's going to be competitive in the West between OKC and San Antonio, the top two seeds there. Let's see if they're on that collision course to meet in the second round. That's going to be worth watching. We're into the second round with the Stanley Cup playoffs. And we'll probably come back to that one next week because a lot of game ones are going on as we speak. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But we've got that. We've got PGA Championship coming up here in another week or so, John. So we'll be talking about golf and Rory McIlroy and Scotty Scheffler and all the usual suspects that will compete in a tournament that traditionally favors the big hitters. Those courses play long, but you still, you have to hit them straight, long, and you have to putt. And you're talking about two of the best there. So, hey, we're on Facebook. We are on YouTube. Come back and see us because we're going to talk about it.
Hey, another great week in sports. Hey, thanks for joining us again. As Gary said, watch some NBA basketball, watch some WNBA preseason basketball, watch some hockey, watch some soccer, watch some NHL. But above all else, just watch some sports and come back and see us. Take care.